Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the
Justice and
Faith
Show. Yes. Thanks again for coming back and watching another episode. We appreciate everybody coming back for different ones every week. So today we are going to talk about sex, and we're going to talk about different aspects that we find are like important to discuss that people don't always talk about. Just from like a couple things would be like importance of sex, like in a marriage especially, stigmas, egos, pressure, comfort, pressure that one spouse may put on themselves.
experience. One half of the marriage or the relationship has not too much, but has a lot of experience.
And then expectations, and then like also we're going to kind of tie in like intimacy, because like intimacy and sex are not necessarily the same thing, and they get like kind of mushed together sometimes. So
and sometimes I think people mix sex and intimacy together because sex is the easier thing to think. It's more tangible. Intimacy is not always as tangible as sex is. Like sex, sexual intercourse and sexual activities are very direct physical actions. Intimacy can be done at all times and all ways. It's here and it's here. So people a lot of times they don't necessarily correlate them together, but intimacy is the more important piece that makes sex better, because if you have those constant connections, then when you finally get together for the physical piece, then it's a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. So like we're gonna start just by kind of outlining our viewpoints on like why sex is important. So like to me, sex is important because it's that thing that you can share with your spouse, and you aren't sharing it with anybody else. Like especially with me, how I was raised, you literally aren't sharing it with anybody else for your whole life. There's one person that you're having this experience with, and one person only. So sex is important because it's something that you use for yes, procreation, but it's also something that can bring you and your spouse together closer. It's something that you are literally, you have to be vulnerable. You have to trust your spouse, like in everything, because you're in a very vulnerable position when you're having sex with them. So that to me is why sex is important. So that's my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, and to me, sex is important. For me personally, because it's something I feel like I can control. I feel like I can control the outcome. I feel like I can control the build up. There's not a lot I can control. Sometimes financially, or with work, or schedules, or arguments, or with the kid or children if you have children. But sex is one of those things where I feel like it's like the great equalizer. Like if you're able to make yourself vulnerable, as Faith said, to be able to mentally and physically and emotionally give yourself to another person, and that means that you're able to kind of look at everything with a more clearer view. That's just my perspective. For some people, it doesn't work that way. Sex actually clouds things, and that's why we talk about sex within the realm of marriage, because there's not a lot of cloudiness when it comes to sex within marriage. If you're and by no means am I condemning anybody, because I was not a person who waited till marriage to have sex. So, but what happens is it clouds your judgment when it comes to a lot of different things. So, I have a lot of importance on sex through just my upbringing. I was exposed to it very young, and it's been in my life as probably longer than anything, to really be honest. So I've had time to kind of process and look at it. So now being a married man, the idea of it is more important, because now I've learned how to kind of nurture it into a more healthy space, or trying to get it to a more healthy space, where it's just been very unhealthy up to this point, and it still creates mental hurdles and struggles for me sometimes, because it's been more unhealthy than healthy. But it's important because I know that if done right, if done correctly, then it'll help drive other factors within my life to help keep motivating me and positioning me to be the kind of man that I'm aspiring to be.
Yeah, and for anyone who's been like watching us for a couple episodes now, like this is literally one of the many things that we are opposite on, as far as like our history with it, I should say. Like now, I feel like we're getting to be more on the same page, but it's definitely something that If you've been watching, you can kind of see we're definitely on opposite spectrums. So like as I'm going into the next one, which is stigmas, my upbringing, sex was like this thing that you didn't really talk about because it was only supposed to be in the confines of marriage. If you weren't married, you didn't need to know about it because you weren't having it and you weren't going to have it until you were married. And then it was kind of one of those things that like once you got married, then all of a sudden you would just know how to do it. Like it was kind of like
that's incorrect information for anybody
like,
out there that's a virgin or just married or not a lot of sex. Just I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you.
It's important. Like I'm not saying I'm upset or like I think waiting was the right choice. I believe in sex for marriage. That's my thing. I believe everything that I grew up with, except for the fact that it wasn't talked about. I feel like if it was talked about a little bit more, like I wouldn't have had so much like sex to me was like this mythical creature that like I wasn't going to like get to see unless I got married. And then if I didn't get married, then all of a sudden I'm missing out on something. And like and it was like it was both equal parts like beautiful for a married relationship, but then it was also like dirty. Like it was like I don't know how to really explain it, but like if you raised like I was, or if you like are in that kind of situation now, like it's definitely something that I feel like more people need to talk about, because it was also talked about like just intercourse, and I, without getting too graphic, like there's more than one way to have sex. And like because I didn't have a lot of information on it, I mean I had like health class, I knew like the basics work of how sex worked, but like sexual activity outside of procreation was not something I knew much about. So there was a lot of
as kids, we're not really taught about a lot of that stuff. Right. I wasn't either. I was just exposed. Like I was exposed as early as 2 years old. Like I saw the first naked woman I saw was my mother. And I saw things I didn't know how to identify until later in my life. Those things always kind of stuck with me. Fortunately, they didn't scar me. I mean, like my scars run deep, so I can't say it didn't scar me. But fortunately, it didn't cause me to be a super deviant. Because when I say I was exposed, I mean I was exposed on a lot of different levels. And so my exposure to sex, my affinity for sex and sexual behavior, sexual activity, my knowledge of it, my growth in it, and honestly, and not to sound graphic, like my talent for it, because it's one of those things that's always been interconnected. So it's been problematic for me in my life. I will not say that it's been problematic I don't want to say problematic in our marriage, but it is.
It's been a point of contention in some areas, and we'll get to that later.
And pretty much that's what we'll explain that, like in that area of experience versus inexperience. But just the viewpoint of it, like there wasn't a viewpoint. There wasn't a viewpoint of marriage because I grew up in areas where people weren't married. People didn't really stay together. They didn't stick together. Like when I was a teenager, I remember a girl asking me in sixth grade. She asked me about a certain sexual thing, and I guessed correctly. And she was like, and then she gave me more feedback, and I was like, we were like 12 at that time. And that was my life. That was my life. Like she taught me something at 12, and like faith upbringing, they didn't really teach her a lot. And then as I got older, you start seeing more, you start hearing more, and fortunately for me, no one ever like pushed sex at me to the degree where they tried to like make me feel bad about it. Like no one ever, and I wasn't a peer pressure type, so it wasn't like people peer pressure me into it. Like I kind of fell into it accidentally. Like when I say accident, I mean I literally accidentally. And then I was just silently like, I'm marrying this woman. Like that was my whole mindset. And of course that's not what happened, but that was just my mindset because I just always thought sex was reserved, like not necessarily for marriage, but for somebody that you love. But once again, like I said, I didn't grow up around married people, anybody pushing that, but I was like, I believe that sex should be for somebody you really care for, that you love, that you want to spend your life with. And when you're young, you don't really know how that works out. So yeah. It's like the different viewpoints are very important because faith was taught like marriage. Sometimes that sits with people. I wasn't taught anything, but I knew like if I share this with a person, if this happens, like I want to only share this with this person. That's not how my life turned out. But when the first actual happened, I guess that was just the mindset that I had. So my viewpoints over time have changed. But I still have I want to call it a convoluted vantage point of sex, just because it's just the world, first of all, is saturated with it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I try to do to get away or whatever the case may be, it pops up, and sometimes it pops up in the most. It's like really like here.
Yeah, this world is not meant for people to be to not have temptation. Not at all. Like if you're like that's not a thing.
Even certain kid shows and things like that now.
Yeah.
Just the hypersexualization of certain stuff. In movies and TV shows and stuff like that.
Like The Incredibles,
Oh,
for instance. Why does the mom have to have such thick thighs? Like that's not a thing that needs to be in a kid's show, but it's in there.
And there's some perverse person who didn't deal with their sexual aptitude or whatever the case may be, that is now just positioning themselves to be able to say, hey, I can put this here. And I've seen grown men or heard grown men talk about how thick Miss Incredible is. It's
right.
Like
it's
like crazy.
But so then like that's important to know just as we keep going. Like know why we kind of think of things the way that we do. And next we're gonna talk about comfort level, and like obviously my first time having sex, and I'll preface this by saying my first time having intercourse was with him on our wedding night. Like literally I had never had sex before. Unfortunately there were some other things that happened and whatever, that might be another episode, but I had no comfort level with sex. and like kind of putting this with one of the other things that we're going to go into next, I put a lot of pressure on myself because of how important it was always talked about for marriage. So like not only is it important just because it's important for marriage, and then also I knew he had it already, so like he had certain expectations and stuff, so it was a lot for me. And like, but now as like we're remarried, sex is a little bit more comfortable for me. Like I feel like it's something that we both are I was gonna say happy about, but it sounds kind of silly, but it's something that I feel like we both I'm comfortable with it, and I feel like I'm comfortable with him specifically. Like I feel like I'm safe, I'm comfortable, I don't have to really be too insecure, even though there's still definitely insecurities that I'm struggling with. And before we started videoing, we had a whole thing about it because I definitely have insecurities about his past and about his needs and stuff, because I feel like sometimes I'm just not meeting them, and it makes me feel inadequate as a wife and a woman and all kinds of stuff. So that's something I need to work on. But his comfort level is completely different than mine.
No, nothing about sex makes me uncomfortable. Like I said, I've been exposed to it young. I've talked to people. I've experienced it. It's one of the few things in life where I think I don't call myself an expert. I believe like I'm very renaissance. I know a lot about a lot. I know some things about a lot, but I don't know. I'm not a master of very much because just my mind, the way my mind works. But like sex is one of those areas where it's like I get it. Sometimes to a detriment because I can't explain what I get, because if anybody's ever had sex before, you gotta understand sex, the act of sex itself, sexual intercourse or any sexual activity, they're acts. So you can't really explain the act or the acts to the degree in which you will want to convey it to another person or other people. So and because of my past, I don't want to necessarily talk to my wife, and every time we have a conversation about sex, I'm bringing up past stuff because that's just kind of what happens. But in order to try to explain and express how I'm feeling, not necessarily that I'm not getting something, I'm feeling this way because my exposure was very young, my exposure was very often, my experiences are very, I don't want to say robust, but like they're very
Eclectic. Is that a good
Yeah,
word?
so it's like
It's
it's like
litany of different
it's
things.
a rainbow. So it's just kind of like I've seen the best and the worst of a lot of things. Oh, jeez, I got to Charlie horse. I got a Charlie horse real quick. But I've seen the best and the worst of a lot of things. And now I'm married, and it's like, okay, I can totally understand how sex becomes a huge problem in a marriage because when you're fully committed to one person, especially if you get married young, so we're in our 30s, so it's like for the next, I have a just disclaimer. I'm sorry, like I have a high sex drive, a high libido. I always have. So I was thinking like by this time I wouldn't care as much. Now I'm able to process it and deal with it better, but I'm just like I feel like it's semi illness. Like I need somebody to tell me like you should not be this way. But I don't know. It's just what it is. And I'm like for the next 30, 40 years, if this doesn't change or like if I'm not this, like how is that? Because that does put pressure on her. It's not fair to her. But I'm like I don't know exactly how that. The most I can do is just be patient with her and understand that she's not at that level. She'll never be at the level because she's growing at the level with me. So I'm already so far ahead. It's like so it's the one area of our marriage where I've had to kind of like bring myself back down and kind of like stabilize myself because it's not fair to expect her to reach where I was.
Right.
So I've had to kind of like drop down to kind of see where she's at and then try to regrow with her. As it should have been, I can't even say it should have been because if it should have been that way, then I'm guessing it would have been that way.
Like
so
we needed to have. I feel like we needed to have some of these things because of whatever reason. I feel like maybe this podcast, this episode might reach somebody that is going through something like whatever it is it's meant to be. But I'm definitely just the sheer cavern of like disparity between us sexually is a little daunting sometimes, and it's something that like I didn't when we first got married. It was a lot of pressure, but like now that we're remarried. I feel like it's even more pressure.
The first time with pressure because I think I was more it's so weird the level of patience. I think sexually I had more patience with you when we were married the first time. And then I had less. I guess I can't even say I had less patience everywhere else, but I know I had more patience sexually, and because it was so new to you, your approach to it was a little bit different.
Right.
This time around, I have patience with you, but I'm also more expressive about how I feel because, like I said, for the rest of our lives, which is the contract we signed, pretty much, it's like I can't go around acting like if I need more, I want more. I have to say something.
And honestly, this is the first time that he has 100% had to commit to just one partner, correct?
Yeah.
So like, not to put yourself out there, but like,
I mean, that's the truth.
In the back of your mind, even before, like, you always were like, well, if I need more, I can go somewhere else. Like, if she's not giving me enough, I can get it from somewhere else, and then that way, I'm not putting too much pressure on her because.
No, and that's a learning curve, and that's not it putting me out there. That's one of those things that's people that know me. For those who watch who don't know me, it's kind of like that. Yeah, like even like I said, in our first marriage, no, we all know how that ended by now.
Yeah.
But not throughout the marriage. So that one thing was very quick, and everything changed after that.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea wasn't like, all right, throughout the whole marriage, like I have a team of women that are satisfying needs because I was like, we were both new to marriage. We were both married for the first time. This time around, it's like once I committed, I was like, I'm committed, and it's like I can't. There's no team. My team that I used to have. There's no team anymore. So it's just like the face, the point guard, the shooting guard, the center, everything, and it's just gotten like. I don't want to curse, but I'm like that's really just in my head. It's like, well, shoot, like crap. Like, what am I supposed to do? When nothing's work, when nothing I'm attempting to do or the needs that I'm looking for specifically are being met, because when you have options, you have other people, it's just kind of like there's a part of me that's just kind of like, well, yeah, it kind of helped her or it would help somebody because it's like there's not, and I was with somebody who pretty much said it like, well, if you talk to other people and you're with other people, then I don't have to do those things. And that was one of the things that jaded me as well, because that kind of showed me like, you're not willing to do or be what you need to be in this relationship, but you don't mind if I get it elsewhere because you're still getting something from the relationship. So it started getting me to the point where it's like, I don't think people are really understanding and being mindful of the fact that, like, it's not a game. Relationships are not a game. Even the most seemingly insignificant ones and stuff, they have a carryover effect. This was a pretty significant relationship that had a carryover effect. And once I saw, like, people aren't willing to do, I'm not begging you for anything. I'm not begging you for sex.
And just a clarification, the things that he wants, like, I'm not willing to do. It's just I feel it's either I don't know how to go about it genuinely, and I don't want to do anything like fake or like forced in our relationship. I want anything that happens in the bedroom, I want it to be
Doesn't have to be in the bedroom.
Well, yeah, but anything that happens, anything that happens in our relationship that way needs to be something that I can maintain, and something that's going to be like actually real and genuine. Like, so it's not that I don't want to do it; it's just that I don't know how to go about it in a real, genuine way right now. And it's like, because some of the stuff is just it doesn't come naturally.
It's not the way you're saying. It's like I want you to dress up like a dominatrix.
No, it's not. It's not anything actually with the actual act. It's nothing to do with the actual act. It's like everything else that's around it.
So, all right. So we're going into turn-ons and turn-offs. So one of the things about me that might make me a little bit different than most men, or maybe most men aren't talking about this particular thing. I'm not just always at the ready. Like, I don't just, she doesn't just lay sprawled out and say, come get it. And I'm like, oh, great, thank you. Like, it doesn't work like that for me.
Like, a lot of things kind of have to be so
yeah, like, I things have to be kind of set up a certain way. Like, spontaneity is fine. And those things do happen. But I do like a build up. I like a lead up. I like a little bit, I like affection and kissing and touching, and I want things to happen naturally. Sometimes, schedule wise, like, hey, we just, hey, you kind of, I hate to say it like this, but you get in when you can, and you do what you can when you can. But there's other occasions where it's like, you want, just, and it sounds so crazy. So somebody's probably like, oh, he's a girl, but it's like, you kind of want to be, not wine and dine, but you kind of want to be, you show, like, you wanted foreplay. Like, in foreplay, people think it's all things, all people. It's not. Like, foreplay goes a lot of different ways. It's like putting a seed and let that seed grow and manifest throughout the day. And even if at the end of the day you have a long day you can't get to, it's just understanding, like, you feel wanted and you're desired and those types of things. And, like, that's one of my biggest things. And
that's something that I don't really know how to, like, do more of, because, like, I feel like he should just know that he's desired with me, because I don't know, like, I feel like I say it, but maybe I don't say it enough, or I don't say it the right way, or with enough vigor, or whatever. But, like, he's very attractive. Anybody that has seen him.
Not today. It's been a long day.
He's very attractive, and he's, like, doing even more to get even more attractive. He's eating better, getting fit. Like, things are getting like tighter. But
I don't know where that just went.
But anyway, he's very attractive, and I feel like he should know that. But, like, I don't know if I'm just not saying it the right way, or I'm not saying it enough, or but yeah, like, that's something to him. Sex is very mental and physical, like he said. So it's one of those, like, he needs to feel a certain way in order to, like, really get into it.
Like, yeah, I could have sex, but I'm just like, I told her before we got on, I was like, sex to me, if it's a physical act for me, this is gonna sound very cruel. I can have sex with anybody and not give a darn about it. I really could. But because it's with my wife and I love my wife and I want to be connected with my wife, like, there's a trifold that like the mental, emotional, and physical aspect. That's what makes it great. That's what makes it satisfying. That's what makes me come back for more. That's what makes her come back for more. And it's not just because we're married and there's an expectation. There's like there's an expectation that we eat. There's an expectation that we go to work. These are all expectations that we do. But it's just like there's a privilege to be able to be, viral enough and physically fit and things enough to be able to have sex.
Virile.
Did I say viral?
Yes.
Viral, sorry. I mean, sometimes, Never mind. I can't say that. I was about to say something about going viral, but never mind and stuff. But if you guys in your sex lives want to go viral, then go for it. There's just something to be said about the way that people look at sex and they process it, and just the fact that I understand that it's not a given for everybody. I don't take it for granted. I understand what I've been through in this regard. I understand what she hasn't been through in this regard, and it's a constant struggle some days and some ways for me, because there's so much pressure without actually being pressure, because there's so much sex just around, like everything's sexualized. Like I'm looking at a pen right now and I'm like, that dang pen somehow is sexualizing me at this moment. Like everything's sexually charged. So learning how to put your energy in the correct place, or even understanding like when to use it appropriately, is difficult for some people. Like I'm in a constant state of sexual nirvana, so to speak. Like at any given time, I'm ready to go, but I'm also not ready to go. It's kind of like a car. Like the car is already always ready to go, but when you turn that ignition and then it starts up, then it's actually active. So it's like I'm always ready to do the things, but it's like that ignition needs to be turned on. And she knows how to do those things. I don't have that same privilege because, like she said, she's attracted to me in a specific way where it's kind of like perpetual. With her, I'm always attracted to her too, but I'm very perverse in certain situations, like certain dresses, or there's things that she know, like if she wears it, that outfit implies sex.
Right.
Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And
she walks out with it.
It's not just lingerie. Like it's
there's
real
certain
outfits that I can like just wear.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh well, yeah, you understand what's going to happen now. Like, you understand what you're doing. So
and then along with all of this stuff that we're talking about is also being able to communicate with your spouse, and that like about sex, and that's like why we're really doing this, because I feel like these help us sometimes more than. But
it's a tough discussion, especially when you're so opposite of us, because we're a little worn. Like we were thinking about not doing this because it's that of all the podcasts, I think this was the one because it really pinpoints on my past, and it also pinpoints on the fact that, like I said, inadequacy. That it's a different kind of inadequate. Like. No one's unhappy with the actual sexual stuff. It's just that the way we view sex and the way we've always viewed sex becomes problematic, which in turn affects sex as a whole, because it's like if we start thinking too much about it, then we're not having more sex. So
and like I've told him, like I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that's something that we even just talked about not too long ago, but on something else. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself because I feel like I don't want to cause stress in our relationship. And like I know that sex is very important to him. Like it's very important to me, but it's different and important to him. And like it's something that like I could go, like how long do you think I could go a while without having sex, because I went years, like my whole life up until I met him, like, and we got married, like without it. So it's not something I need.
And I can go without sex too. I've learned this about myself. I can go without sex too, but how I do it is definitely a different process, because she can go without sex and not think about sex and not think about anything sexually related. To me, like I am like the innuendo master. I am like, I try to watch certain things that don't have. There's certain TV shows I wanted to watch, and I'm just like, there's all kinds of boobs and booties everywhere, and I'm just like, come on, man, it's about football. Why these days? But they all got women all the time or certain stuff, and it's just like this influx, and it's just kind of like peppering me at all times. So it's like my process. It's a lot more daunting. It's a lot more. It's like a gauntlet for me. Where for her, it's just kind of like she gonna watch the same stuff I watch and just go, it's boob, like like, and I'm like. Boobs, like it's just a totally different thing.
Because and it's just being able to have those conversations, be open and honest with your partner. Like it's hard to have these conversations, but we have them, and I feel like it's important that we have them. Because I don't know how he feels, but I think every time we do have them, we do get a little bit closer to being like more
I mean, it tempers your expectations, which is on our list. But like, it tempers your expectations. Like I have my expectations in regards to sexual things in our relationship. I think are appropriate because I understand that like the business of sex is great. But the build up is just kind of like when you go to the gym, like everybody wants to see the peaks on the arm, like you want to see the abdominals right away, but you don't understand like before you even get to the gym, there's preparation that has to happen. So it's harder to do the preparation and actually the gym. Once you get in the gym, you're like, all right, well, I got nothing to do but lift weights, run, whatever it is. But before it's like, well, you got to have diet and you got to, have supplements and all these other types of things. It's like those are things that kind of, I won't say are missing, but those are things that we have to try to figure out a little bit better. So it's like once we're in the gym, like we're moving weight. But before that, like there's still some supplementation and some things like that we're still trying to work through. Because it's a very mental thing and I can't transverse my mind to her and she can't just automatically understand when she's had 27 matter I can't even say 27 years, 32 years of thinking one way pretty much and being taught that and being instilled in that. And I just kind of been a maverick. I've been a rogue out here just with no particular thought process, and everything has just been like the wild west. So it's like, what do you do when two worlds collide like that? And the actual collision, it creates something beautiful, but it's just kind of like there's after effects that they're continuously being worked on.
Yeah. So, that's all the time we really have for today.
No. We got a little bit more time. We're just gonna hit this intimacy. So we talked about the sex, and we just need to make sure that people understand that sex and intimacy are not one and the same. Intimacy is just a connection that you have with the person that you're with. So just make sure that you take the time to really connect with the person that you're with, because sex is not always going to be available. Right. Sex is not always going to be something that you're going to feel like doing. I've had to learn that. Like, there are days, even now, I'm like, I don't feel like it. I don't feel up to it. It's not nothing to do with her. I had a long day. I'm tired. I don't want to do this particular thing because I'm not going to do it the way that I want to do it.
Yeah. And
that's just it. So it's just kind of like some days I just want to sit with her. I just want to hug her. I want to hold her. I just want to talk to her. I just want to feel some kind of a connection. So I think that that's what everybody really needs to be mindful of. Like, sex is a great connector too. It allows you to decompress, as she said earlier, and sometimes you're able to listen a lot better because the endorphins and everything like that. But do not confuse sex and intimacy. It's how a lot of people go astray. They have sex, then they think they're in love, and all kinds of other stuff like that. That's not true.
Right. So, well, I hope this helped in some aspect. I know after we get off, we're going to talk about this, and it'll be something that's probably going to be following us through our whole relationship. But
y'all should definitely watch this podcast because of this conversation, I'm not going to be having sex today. So I'm a little perturbed by that, but whatever the case may be, I hope this better help somebody.
So this is just Justice and Faith, and we're gonna sign off. But before we do, just remember to hit the like, hit subscribe, follow us on all of our stuff,
and keep your faith strong
and maintain justice.
God bless.
Bye.